an executive career coach, writer, speaker, author of 2 books, 2 very popular books I'd like to believe, called Her Way to the Top, A Guide to Smashing the Glass Ceiling, and Her Allies. And I'm very excited to be part of this WOW Festival. I am here today because I was told to speak about my favorite topic, which is allyship. So let me begin by telling you a little bit about my journey. The reason why I wrote my first book, Her Way to the Top, A Guide to Smashing the Glass Ceiling, was because I had experience of working in Pakistan, Dubai and UK, and I was seeing that there was a very similar trend in the challenges that women were experiencing throughout the world. And of course I had to test that theory, and I did a survey, a poll, in which 300 women participated, and lo and behold, the results were very similar. The results showed that women across the world were experiencing a combination of internal and external barriers. So when I was delivering talks, when I used to go to the public and private sector to talk about my first book, about women in leadership, I used to meet men, several well-intentioned men, who wanted to support allyship, the concept of allyship, who wanted to be allies to women, who wanted to really help the women in their circle, but they often did not know how to. And I decided, it's about time that I should write a book on this. And I think the concept of the book was triggered because of the horrific rape incident which took place on the motorway in Pakistan in 2020. And that's when I decided, because I run another venture called the International Women Empowerment Events, through which we organize conferences, empowerment conferences for women across the Asian region, and the launching conference was in Maldives. So under the umbrella of this particular company, we launched an initiative called Her Allies, where we gave specific strategies to people on how to be allies to women, what is it that they can do, and that was very well received. And so I decided that, I need to elaborate this and make it into a proper book. And when I discussed the concept with a publisher, she loved it. And, Her Allies was traditionally published last year. Now, what exactly is the concept of allyship? Allyship is a process by which people from privileged backgrounds, and you could be privileged owing to your gender, owing to the color of your skin, or you could be privileged owing to your socioeconomic background. So people from the privileged background support and champion people from underrepresented groups, and that include women or people from different racial and faith backgrounds. Of course, it's equally relevant in Pakistan because you do have certain ethnicities who are not represented. So yes, that is the concept of allyship. And when we are exploring allyship, I think what is important is that you need to understand what's holding people back from stepping up as allies, particularly when you're talking about gender allyship. So what is it that's holding men back? Because I truly believe that if you want to implement changes, you really need to get to the heart of the problem, and we need to address those issues. We can't dismiss them. And I know women are exhausted, I know women are tired, and they don't want to carry this extra burden of educating men on what they need to do and what they not need to do. But I guess that's what it is. And I wish it was different, but unless we do not encourage men and we do not support them in the allyship process, then I'm afraid the journey is going to be incomplete, and the results are not going to be as fruitful as we would hope them to be. What you need to do is, of course, find out what is it that's holding allies back. It could be apathy. A lot of people genuinely don't know what is it that they will gain from championing gender equality or racial equality. It could be fear of making mistakes, and I think that's a very genuine and relatable one. We as women can relate to that fear. We have been judged for the longest time for saying the wrong things and for not acting in a certain way. So I understand why men might be afraid to say the wrong thing. There is also a zero-sum mentality where some people feel that, if I support a person from another gender, another race, another faith, then maybe my pie gets smaller and I don't get a big share of that. So that's very common. And then there's, of course, lack of awareness. I cannot believe how many times I've had to explain to men in my circle that just because women in your circle haven't experienced it or they haven't shared it with you, doesn't mean that they are not experiencing challenges such as sexual harassment at work or other microaggressions. So once we address this, then we need to start focusing on the benefits of allyship, make allies realize what is it that what's in it for them. And you would say, well, of course it's the right thing to do morally, socially. This is what we should be doing. We should be supporting each other. We should be striving for a more inclusive and diverse world. But if you start focusing also on individual benefits, because yes, diversity leads to greater profits, diversity of ideas means that the company is going to be more creative, which of course is going to impact the bottom line results. And there's a lot of research which indicates that. But then individually too, men can improve from gender equality, because of course it improves their mental health. Right? They can be liberated from toxic masculine norms which tell them to be rough and tough all the time and the savior and the bread earner. They can share financial responsibilities with their spouse if they are married, or with other women in their family, and they can also look after their children. You don't have to be the only one going to work. And of course, research has also proven, this is not something which I've made up, that the countries that are more inclusive, where the gender gap is smaller, those countries, male suicide rate is a huge problem, and it was one of the key themes for International Men's Day last year. So that male suicide rate also reportedly is much lower in countries that are more gender inclusive. And once you move on to the benefits, you focus on the benefits and the advantages allies have, then you start with the process. And the process is very simple. It begins with why is it that, what is it that I can do to challenge myself? Because, and I say this often, and I've already said this before, that it is easiest to start with yourself. Right? And some of the things as an ally, what you can do is, first of all, educate yourself, because you cannot make a difference, or you cannot positively impact and influence underrepresented groups if you are not aware of the challenges they are facing. So one way to do it is through research, or reading up articles, talking to women in your circle. But the best way is to, of course, expand your circle and meet people from different ethnicity, faiths, socioeconomic backgrounds, so you are more aware of what's going on. Then, of course, it's important to ask the right questions, not in an intrusive way, but in a way in which you look genuinely interested. There is no harm in asking questions if it's asked respectfully. Find out what you don't know, and there's absolutely no harm in making mistakes. We all make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. I have to actively work on my biases all the time. Just yesterday, my son pointed out, when I was telling him to play cricket match with his cousins, and I, unintentionally I named all boy cousins, and he was like, "Mama, don't you think that's a bit sexist? Because you haven't named the girl cousins, why can't they play?" So we all have these entrenched biases which we have grown up with, which we need to actively challenge and question. And once you're made aware of what the problem is, prepare to be uncomfortable. Acknowledge your responsibility and apologize. A lot of time, a lot of issues are seen because people are not able to apologize in the right manner. So if you apologize sincerely, genuinely, with the intention not to repeat the mistake, then it can really, really help improve gender relationships. And then, of course, do not engage in victim blaming. That's another very important part of being an ally. Whether you are somebody who is supporting people from different genders or races, ethnicity, faiths, you need to understand that, if somebody is telling you that the person has been harassed or victimized, you cannot go on and say, well, why didn't you report it earlier, or what were you doing and why did you do this, because that just exhausts the victim. It takes a lot of courage to speak up, and when they do not expect, the last thing they're expecting is to be questioned and for people to be skeptical about why they actually came forward. So again, not all men is something which I talk about a lot. Yes, we understand that not all men are bad, not all men are rapists. In fact, majority of the men are respectful, decent human beings, and they're really good. But the problem is that most of the gender violence which is committed in the world of today, whether we like it or not, the perpetrators are male. Whether it's, and yes, men get sexually harassed too, and men are go through a lot of challenges too. But whether it's men, children, or even animals, the perpetrators are often men, right? So we just need to. So instead of saying that it's not all men, I think it's helpful to use a hashtag like yes, all men can. I love the new hashtag, which means that all men can still support, can still support and still be allies. So little things like these: questioning yourself, listening, believing the women, not putting the blame on her. And of course, the book has lots of different strategies. And then the second important thing is to challenge others. And I know there's this long-standing bro code, which is difficult to violate, but you have to understand this, that even if you're a good man who doesn't engage, you'll probably say, well, I don't go around raping people. And yes, I believe you, we hear you. But if you are not calling out friends, friends who are making sexist or racist or transphobic comments and jokes or microaggressions which have derogatory or condescending, then of course you're also part of the problem. So you do need to call out people, and respectfully so. I'm not asking you to be confrontational or overly aggressive. And as a man, you are privileged, so your word is definitely going to be more believable. People are going to believe you more. And yeah, I mean that's what it is. Even in the West, if a man reports sexism, or if he says that something has gone wrong, or he calls out something, the ills of the society, people will believe that man more as compared to the women. It's sad, it's unfortunate, but that's what it is. So if, as a man, you have the courage to call out other men, it's really going to help everyone in the long run. And you don't have to be, like I said, you don't have to be angry, aggressive. You can simply pause, not engaged, and hopefully when you don't engage, when you don't laugh, when you don't react, the person who has made that comment is going to feel awkward, and that that awkward silence will make them self-reflect, and they will not repeat the question. Or if somebody is making such a comment, you can also ask a reflective question and ask them, why is it that they said it? Can you explain more? And chances are, when people are asked to explain themselves, they're forced to self-reflect. So things like this. And then of course the next step is challenging the organization culture, which is very important. Looking at all the policies within your organization, making sure that they're inclusive, looking at panels, making sure they're not homogeneous, looking at events, making sure they're diverse, looking at the culture. And finally, you challenge the institution, which is calling out media bias and championing for more inclusive government policies, as well as more inclusive education rights for everybody. So this is the 4 steps that I recommend in the allyship process. And the reason why I'm so passionate about this is because I do believe truly that women alone will not be able to achieve gender equality. We do need men as allies. We do need men to rewrite the narrative and support us. We do need men to not to be our saviors, mind you. We don't need knights in shining armor who will come and rescue us, but we do need men who would be, our advocates, mentors, sponsors, and of course, most importantly, allies. So that's the reason why the concept of allyship is very important to me. And allyship is not only relevant to women, it is applicable to all underrepresented, marginalized groups within your circle, within your community, within your country. And if you speak up for them, sometimes you have to understand that there's nobody who speaks up for these people. So if individually we're able to take a stand, then collectively it's going to make a lot of difference. So yes, that's about it from my side on allyship. I am somebody who's very passionate about calling out all forms of hatred, and if you Google me, you will see a lot of my articles calling out racism, sexism, and Islamophobia. And sometimes I do get backlash for that, but that's all right. That's part and parcel of the job, and I have learned to live with it. But what is important is to keep trying, to keep doing our bit so that this world is more inclusive and a better place to live in. Thank you.